Welcome back to the techno-communism conversation. I'm going to talk about a little bit more about my proposed United Earth Directorate, um, applying some of the concepts from cybernetic socialism, uh, more particularly to it. I just finished the second half of the book, How to Use AI to Build Communism in Your Lifetime, because if we don't, humans will soon become extinct. And that focuses more on an AI-run planned economy and the particulars of it, applying the field of cybernetics and particularly cybernetic socialism to those ideas. And I would encourage you, if you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, I will add a link in the comments that has the two audiobook playlist, the two videos, the audiobook playlist for that. So I encourage you to listen to that sometime when you have a few hours. And the focus on this idea of a world revolution is, in some people's view, the wrong way to think about this. And I credit that concern. I value it. So I'll talk about that for a moment before I start with this overview of the United Earth Directorate. As you're probably aware, if you are a person who's spent any time learning about socialism, there was Karl Marx, for example, wrote very little about what a communist government would look like. Most of his writing was really about capitalism, until the October Revolution and the founding of the Soviet Union, until the founding of the USSR. Generally, people believed that people would become educated more and more, and they would join together in clamoring for socialism in every land, leading to a world revolution, which I still believe is a sound view of this. But that shifted to, for many, to the concept of socialism, building socialism in one country. You have to understand that some of this world revolution business was not perhaps as utopian as it sounds, because this is kind of before the introduction of the nation state as we understand it. The 20th century nation state, with things like military-industrial complexes and income taxes and all manner of things, a bit more complicated than what existed in earlier nation-state models, such as they were, which is relatively few. There were kingdoms and things. It's interesting for me to think about, I suppose, because this world revolutionist concept, the ideas of Trotskyists have informed my thinking a lot in thinking about an AI-run planned economy, or something like the United Earth Directorate, which I believe a relatively small number of humans equipped with a stronger AI digital assistants that might be released in 2025 or 2026 could essentially, through basically click-through processes, the individual humans doing very, very little labor, organize a planned economy that could provide services of the kind that I'm going to describe in this essay to the entire world by having this interoperable network of sidekicks doing work with human oversight. I believe that this is a form of superintelligence, and I believe that it will be effectively the first form of superintelligence to come into existence. And I think that I do not think the capitalists will be inclined to do this because they are too profit-driven and individualistic to create such a proxy hive mind, and nor would they see the benefit in this sort of thing, which, among other things, would supplant the institutions by which they currently profit. And even though those individuals would profit a good deal more, in certain respects, to what would derive from this, which would be effective post-scarcity, they don't care really about that. They care about not being implicated or charged with the crimes that they've committed, and they care about maintaining a perverse power dynamic that really is the thing that the ruling elites enjoy. But the Trotskyists, even though this world revolutionist idea is not by itself problematic, Trotskyists, some Trotskyists are among the most learned and in many respects sensible people that I've ever observed or encountered. But I could say the same thing about liberals because by and large, they're operating, liberals like Trotskyists are kind of operating on bad first principles, namely a preoccupation with lies about Joseph Stalin and the USSR of a certain period, because when people are really talking about Joseph Stalin was not this kind of godlike figure. He was one of many people running a big country. Granted, he had a large role in that, but this part of anti-communism of the mid 20th century to the present is kind of applying proto-fascist hero worship concepts to socialist countries and then characterizing them as tending to be worse than the fascist countries that they would have replaced. None of it makes a lot of sense on close analysis, but it's something that you can scarcely even really find Marxists who don't do this to some degree, preoccupied with this kind of hero worship. It's, if you don't believe this, what I've said about these lies, CIA talking points about Joseph Stalin and the USSR, recall that before around 1954, no one believed any of this about Joseph Stalin. It's not because all of this was kept under wraps, it's because it was fabricated around that time. When Joseph Stalin died, he was replaced by a man named Nikita Khrushchev, who, for all intents and purposes, can be described as a CIA asset, pushing the Soviet Union into increasingly capitalist territory and ultimately leading to its illegal and disgusting destruction by the fascist West. And in 1954, he gave a famous speech. You can read Grover Furr for more details about this. But he gave a famous speech denouncing Stalin as a murderer and arch criminal. This speech was completely unhinged, detached from reality, but it crushed class solidarity around the world. Literally, half the people who were active in communist political parties at that time left them, and Trotskyists who were had virtually no following and very little to say or of interest at that time suddenly became a much larger part of the conversation because of Nikita Khrushchev and this anti-Stalinist line, which was then parroted around the world by various fascistic individuals and institutions to such a degree that you cannot really have a conversation about the Soviet Union and its achievements. It took a nation of people who were basically almost all peasants, who were basically almost all illiterate, who had a very short life expectancy, and in the span of about 25 years, it doubled that life expectancy by doing a thing that's very intuitive, which is things like building public health service and a housing authority and jobs programs, and turned to that country not only doubling its life expectancy and ultimately more than doubling it, but turned that country from a nation of illiterate peasants into a nation of scientists and engineers, the envy of the developed world. These other narratives that emerged subsequently were a part of that envy and that sabotage that has more or less been at the center of what the fascist West has done with respect to socialist nations from the jump. Recall that there was something called the USSR Civil War from shortly after beginning around the end of the First World War and lasting a number of years. Many people, Soviet people, died in that war, and that war was entirely a product of the fascist West. Almost every country in the fascist West, the U.S. and many others, the U.S. kind of beginning its long trajectory around that time of sort of becoming the mastermind of world fascism, the ringleader of anti-communism and world fascism, and but many countries sending soldiers and resources to destroy this socialist experiment, kill it in its crib before it could begin to inspire the masses, which it did to a very great degree. So these Trotskyites are not merely world revolutionists. They are people who routinely fixate on CIA talking points, particularly about Joseph Stalin, and it's unfortunate that so much of this kind of disruptive narrative and line of thought is a part of socialism. Back to the United Earth Directorate. This is a model for AI-assisted governance and planned economies, and informed by cybernetic socialism. This conversation explores the vision for a United Earth Directorate, an innovative form of technocratic governance assisted by a particular type of artificial intelligence. It delves into the intricate workings of these core departments focused on provisioning human needs, things I alluded to, into AI-enabled planning. Alexa, stop. Into AI-enabled planning and coordination systems, interfacing mechanisms to connect citizens and governance, and the foundational infrastructure supporting United Earth Directorate operations. The essay argues that by harnessing advanced technologies through principles of scientific socialism and what my book describes as superintelligent